Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ModzvilleUSA here, back with another one. What I got here is a Geo AES home console. Now, I got really lucky. This was a gamble. I bought this on LBRY as untested for junk console. Received it. Opened it up to check to see if I had a 5-volt version or a 9-volt version. This is a 9-volt version. Bought the appropriate power supply. Bought a single game and tested it. And all I had to do was hit the pins with some deoxit, and it's good as new. It's working. Now, I'm using Insurrection SCART cables through the RetroTink 5X, and the first thing I noticed is it looks terrible. Roll some footage here. There is some very brutal jail bars, as well as some what looks like screen tearing. I think it's a sync issue. So in today's video, we're going to be doing 3 things. We're going to be installing the RGB Bypass mod, which is very simple. 3 resistors, couple wires, easy peasy stuff. We are going to be removing the BIOS and installing the Unibios mod. Add some more features, more control, very cool stuff. And lastly, I'm going to be doing the LED mod for the reset button here. Essentially, we're going to wire up an LED, run it into the reset button, as this is somewhat transparent. So we'll have a nice glowing blue light within this button here when the console is on, as there's no power button on board. Now, I've never even touched an AES until this showed up, and I'm kind of surprised by how light it is. Just kind of a lack of I don't know, I always kind of thought the plastic would feel a bit more premium. Maybe I'm tripping a little bit. Let me know in the comments if you were surprised when you finally laid your hands on an AES. But yeah, something about it just feels a little junkier than one would expect for something that costs such an insane amount of money. Still is a pricey thing to buy. I got lucky. I bought this for $150, but if you buy a working one, you're paying $350, $400, whatever. But yeah, luckily this just needed a little bit of deoxit, and it's good to go. So yeah, those are the 3 mods we're going to do. We're going to start with the RGB Bypass mod, and of course, while I'm in here, I'm going to clean it up, as it's a little dirty. I can use a good scrubbing. So I want to tear it down, and in the meantime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor. A huge thank you to today's sponsor, PCBWay. Not only do they offer PCB manufacturing, but they now offer CNC and 3D printing services as well. I've gotten PCBs for many of my products and projects manufactured by PCBWay before. The website is super easy to use, and the quality and turnaround time is amazing. Very swag, very handsome. I like it. Thanks again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the show. Well, alright, ladies and gentlemen. Taking the board out of the shell. And what we are going to be following here is this guide over on RetroRGB, how to do the bypass. Here's kind of an example of how much crispier it'll get once it's done. No more jail bars, less blurry, all of that, and I'm hoping it takes care of that weird screen tearing issue that I'm having on mine. So, scrolling down, taking it apart, the first thing we're going to need to do is take care of these 3 capacitors. We are going to remove them. So let's do that. If these components here are not populated on your board, then you've got a 5-volt revision. Mine is the 9-volt revision because these are populated here. So that's how you can tell. The 9 volts are the later revisions, the 5s are the earlier revisions. And as far as I don't know really much of what the difference is. I know some have decent RGB output by default. Mine does not, and it is a Geo AES 3-6. I believe this is definitely one of the later, if not the last, revisions of the AES. So that is something. But yeah, I got my power supply from Console 5. It was cheaper there than getting one from DigiKey, and it is the 9-volt center negative triad power supply. So if I remember, I'll link those as well. And all of this hot glue, that is factory. You'll notice a lot of questionable stuff for something that was so expensive back in the day going on the board. A lot of hot glue. I really don't even know what they were thinking, like what the point of hot gluing these capacitors is. There's also this, is that a diode or a resistor? I don't know, but there's this bodge going here. That's something. Any other oddities? Nothing that I'm noticing offhand, just the hot glue, the odd bodge here. And yeah, so these are the 3 capacitors that we need to take care of. Before doing so, we'll take care of that hot glue. And it's not bad if you don't already know. Hot glue is pretty easy to deal with, especially compared to other adhesives. Just hit it with some IPA. I'm using 99 iso alcohol, and I'm gonna grab a paper towel. We're gonna soak it a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know what it is about rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, but it really breaks down hot glue. It's quite good at that. And here we go. Straight up using my fingers. Comes off nice and clean, just like that. And you know what? I'm not going to question the factory decisions too much. I'll just go ahead and leave this stock, but these need to come out. And before going any further, if you're following along at home, just know if you do this RGB bypass, you are going to lose composite video. No more composite video for you. I prefer using this in RGB. I'm set up for that. But if you have a setup where you like to, use this with your scaler on your modern displays, but you also like to use it via composite on like your PVM or whatever, this might not be, you might need to, get a second AES, have a dedicated RGB machine, and one that still rocks composite. But yeah, I don't care, just be aware, you're gonna lose composite. So these three here. Okay. If I eyeballed that correctly, it should be bop, 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 bop. Should be. Not 100%. Should be that though. Okay. So your best bet is probably using something like the Hakko FR301. Mine's been acting a little fucky lately, and I've just really been enjoying dialing in solder wicks, so that's what I'm going to do. Pick your poison, it doesn't matter really. I want to come in here, I want to flux these up. I'm going to take my iron. You definitely want an even thicker tip than what I'm using here would be optimal, like a knife tip, but chisel tip is my favorite versatile all around fun time tip. It's what I got on, so it's what I'm going to use. So I like to add fresh solder. Windy soldering. It just helps speed things along, and that's almost universally true even with hot air. We'll add fresh solder, and then for more modern equipment like Nintendo Switch, stuff like that, using low melt solder is typically very helpful for removing components due to the nature of unleaded solder requiring ungodly amounts of heat, forged in Mordor or whatever. And let me know down below if you guys are watching Lord of the Rings. I have not caught a single episode. Probably not gonna. I really enjoyed House of the Dragon. The return to form after the nightmare that was Season 8 Game of Thrones. Well, okay. Those are nice and wicked. I like to take my iron and just help it out. Pretty cool. Easy peasy. You really don't need a desoldering gun for most things. And if you've tried wick and you didn't like it, I highly recommend just purchasing a little bit of Goot wick. I've got it down below in the like affiliate links down below. Should be like the smaller one. Definitely give this a try before you give up on wick entirely, because I had used some shitty generic wick before and I couldn't get it working. I got some of this stuff and it does what it's supposed to do. There's a lot of skill involved with, you know, what we're doing here, but a lot of it too, that doesn't get stated enough, is you know, you're really only as good as your tools. And if you're using shitty tools, you're gonna have a shitty time, you know? Okay, next up, we gotta connect 3 1.5k ohm resistors to these 3 points. And as you can see in this guide, it is just straight resistor and heat shrink tubing. These joints look sturdy enough to handle some resistor legs, so I'm not worried about snapping traces or anything like that. These are plenty beefy. And yeah, that sounds like a good strategy, so we're gonna start with number 1. This one has got a bit of a curve in it, so it's gonna be the most annoying. So what I want to do is cut it short on these ends, like in this picture here, and I'll solder these up, and then we'll get the right lengths. We'll cut it, remove it from the board, heat shrink tube it, and then yeah, we'll get them all the right length and prepped, and then we'll insulate and install them. So let's go back to the board here. So I'll have these guys linked. Just grabbed a bunch of 1.5k resistors from Amazon, and I'm going to come in here, trim it about right there on one side. Okay, yeah, that seems good enough to me. So we'll come in here and prep the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the first one is 4, 5, 6. The next one is the first one after it curves, so here, and then skip 2, 3. So let's tin those up. He is the game dude, he is so rude. He is a gamer with a bad attitude. Okay. Very nice. Where the hell's that resistor? There she is. Alright, so I'm going to connect this one up. Right, and I'm working off of my OBS display, so it's a little wonky for me, a little weird, a little wonky. Oh, and you know what? That is like exact, right? Yeah, that's the pin we need to go into. Okay. Glad I didn't trim that any shorter. We'll go ahead and tin up the joints that we are soldering to as well here. And will this oh, you know what? This might actually be too short. Because we want the route, yeah. Okay. Well, that's not a problem. Okay, so we'll go in order here. Okay, so this guy soldered. While I'm at it, I will tin these up. Most of the time with these videos, since I like to do everything off the cuff, you know, I don't like to script or any of that nonsense, so a lot of times I will have done everything once before I shoot a video, just so I already know what I'm talking about. This is not one of those cases. I mean, this should be a pretty straightforward job, but I am learning. I'm learning this along with you right now, so. Okay, now this time I'm gonna cut it like maybe like right about here. Let's see. Yeah, that's fine. And we'll go right there. Okay, my mistake. So this guy goes here. It's a bit more than I like. Okay. Okay. This guy will go curving it around like so. Cool. One more. This guy's going from here to there. Okay, so I can cut this one nice and short. route it like this. Cool. Fantastic. Now I'm going to undo the work I just did. Put the resistors aside. I'll keep them in order to the side of me. They're going to be installed. Okay. Now we get some heat shrink tubing. Okay, so off camera, I went ahead and trimmed the heat shrink tubing to length, put it on the resistors, reattach the resistors, pretty simple stuff. And now, let's shrink that tubing. So I've got my, it's running at 100C, should be plenty. Oh yeah. Can't deprive you of the shrinkage. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. He is the game dude. He is so rude. Very good. Alright, so we've got one more wire to attach, and we'll clean up the board. Yeah, let's clean up the board first, actually. Derp. Okay, I just realized there's some more components to be removed. So 4, 5, 6, so the 8K, the 8K, and the 8K, those all gotta go. So shit, did I cover those up? Okay, we are in luck. So there was no covering of these resistors here, so I'm gonna try to make our job a little bit easier. Clip these bends, or at least get them in a vertical position. Snipping them makes it a little nicer too, because when installing components it is nice to bend them like this, but when removing them, you know, that could be it can be problematic. If you don't straighten them out, you could pull a via, shit like that. It's just no good. Okay. Now with those legs straightened up, we're gonna tin these. And again, coming in here with our wick. Okay, those look like they'll come right out. So let's see. Uno. Okay, so if we look here at the guide, so we're going to be soldering this wire up, and it's going to be routed through one of the holes from one of the capacitors that we moved. The wire just goes in there and around the board. And on the other side, we need to remove this capacitor here and reorient or swap its orientation, I suppose is the best way to put that. So the wire comes through the hole, and then we are going to solder it to the positive leg. So I'm going to remove the chip, the capacitor entirely, swap it, like obviously not swap the polarity, but just kind of swing it around like that, then resecure this leg, and yeah, I'll spare you that. So let's see, go back here. So I did not deal with the hot glue there, so I'm going to deal with that off camera. You already saw capacitor removing and hot glue removing, so I'm gonna get this de-glued, removed, moved around, resecured, and then well, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure you saw in the footage, the RGB bypass was a success, but unfortunately I still do have that weird screen tearing, and I believe that is an issue with the RetroTink 5X. I have heard that there's been some wonky results with Neo Geos, so I'll have to look into that later, but the picture quality much better. Jail bars are gone. So yeah, that takes care of that. Next up is this bad boy. This is the BIOS chip, and we're gonna remove it, put in a socket, and put in a Unibios BIOS chip. So right here on the back, and again, I do have my soldering gun, but I think I'm just going to see how far I get with wick. Maybe a combination of wick and hot air to pop this chip off. But yeah, I'm gonna try it out with the wick. So we're adding some fresh solder here. Over ModzvilleUSA here, and we're just going to do a massive, super quick time lapse of all this wicking. This is not a good way to go about it at all. It was late at night when I filmed this, didn't want to use the gun, and yeah, I think wicking beforehand is just a waste of time. Next time I do one of these, I think I'm just going to add low melt to the top legs of the BIOS chip, or if it's a NES RGB install, same thing. For the PPU, just do low melt on the top side and just go in with the hot air from the get-go, and then wick the pads clear afterwards. But I think going straight in with the hot air might be a good way. Also, check out Long Island Retro a lot of their videos, they do the gun first, your soldering gun first, and then hot air. That does work very nicely. I have done that before. The results are very nice. Next time I think I want to try hot air and then wick would be, I think might work just as well. But yeah, let's get into the hot air. Screw all this wicking. So yeah, 330 max airflow. Just gonna get these nice and molten. Get a nice fine tip here. Get these nice and molten. Bend this guy back. We'll just lift it up. Right, she's coming. Get my tweezers under here. Let's try it like other side. Oh hey, gravity. There she goes. Yeah, I might actually all the wicking. It's probably just a waste of time. We could have just added some fresh solder to the top and used hot air, even low melt if we wanted to really slop it up next time. I just wanted to see how far I could get with the wick. It's definitely not recommended doing this with the wick. It's nothing but wick is a pain in the ass, but you know, if you pull it off, more power to you, because that is some is a tedious affair. So I'm just going to use the wick for probably the only thing we should have used it for to begin with, and that is cleaning these holes up now. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the BIOS chip is removed. All the holes are clear. Let's check this out. A little dirty, I know. We'll clean that up. Putting in the socket like a glove. Alright. And thanks to some of the flux still being on the board, staying in place, just really want to lock in one pin. Alright. Do a bit of a cross pattern here. Fantastic. Flux are up. Go down the line. Okay, now it's time to top this BIOS mod off. And plug the damn chip in. Now this bad boy is programmed with Unibios 4. It is free. Alright. I think it's time to test, dudes. Alright, so let's finish this up. Here is the reset button for the AES. You can kind of tell it's a bit transparent. So we're doing the old LED mod. We're going to wire up an LED to the board and essentially jam it into this reset button. Now I'm loosely following this old guide from MMMonkey.co.uk. They've got some amazing guides, written guides on this website here. Essentially, we're just going to drill a hole. We're going to clip the two posts, drill a hole, get the LED in it. I'm not going to go all out and try to bend the LED all elaborately like this. I think just having the LED coming in horizontally should be plenty good for its brightness. I don't think it really needs to be aligned with the LED like this. I think if it's in sideways, it should look just as nice. So yeah, I don't have a Dremel on hand. Well, I do somewhere. I'm just not really good with it, so I want to use a drill and some hand tools. I'm gonna use the flush cuts here to snip these two supports. Then we'll drill through. Need a stronger one. Okay, so as you can see here, I've cut off, cut the post there, and I've got this hole drilled through. So I'm just going to use hand tools to kind of open up this hole so I can get a LED through it. And alright, easy peasy. So I just drilled the hole and filed it open a little bit until I can get the LED through, and I use some UV curing resin here, flash fix, to secure it. It's much more clear than say hot glue that tends to dry a bit like yellowish, so I think the UV resin is gonna work out much nicer. So now we just need to wire this up and test it. And for wiring, in the guide, they just use this capacitor here. You can also use the voltage regulator. I'm gonna go ahead and just wire it up to this capacitor, which is right next to the button. So let's do that. Well, alright, ladies and gentlemen, so we've got positive going to the second pin down, ground is the middle pin, and then just use your multimeter in diode mode. Check to make sure nothing's shorting here. You don't want to short 5 volts to ground, that would be no bueno. So these are good, and then 5 volts does get continuity with the next pin down. So these two appear to both be 5 volts. So that should be good. Now time to just test it and see what's going on. Let's get into the final results here. And here she is, boys and girls, all finished up. The blue LED goes a long way. I know there's some scuffs on the console, but I bought this thing for 150 bucks as junk, and the fact that it works with very minimal effort, there's a few scuffs here and there, I am pretty damn happy with this AES. Yeah, I got a damn good deal. It's much cooler now. So here we are in the the Unibios menu. You hold A, B, and C on boot. You will come to this menu. You get a lot of options for region setup, arcade setup, console setup, etc. Do a whole lot of tweaking here. Once you get in game, you can hold start and select to get into your game specific cheat menu. Very nice. And here is what the console looked like before the RGB bypass. Just to refresh your memory. Really see those jail bars, really patchy. And here it is after. None of that. Now I've still got the weird, you'll see like that weird screen tearing from time to time. But yeah, I think that's just the way that the Tink 5X is handling the Neo Geo. Here's me getting my ass kicked. I don't know how to play this game. I'm not good at fighting games, so I'm just kind of mashing buttons and getting wrecked by this tiny dude with a funny hat. But yeah, that's it, dudes. Turned out well. And let me know if you know what the deal is with the weird little screen tearing stuff going on. I'd like to get that sorted out at some point, but all in all, super happy with it. Definitely worth doing. Don't mind losing composite, and yeah, it's a success. Thank you guys for watching. ModzvilleUSA signing out. Don't let us back and say what to do.